Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a really tough and sensitive question. Is India's judiciary, which is supposed to be the bedrock of its democracy, facing a crisis of impartiality? We're going to look at the stories and the allegations that have put the courts themselves on trial in the court of public opinion.
So let's jump right in with this pretty shocking moment from the Delhi High Court. Imagine this. The former Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, standing in front of a judge and saying these words out loud. It was a direct, in-your-face challenge to the court's impartiality, and it kicked off a massive national conversation.
You know, that single tense moment is really just the tip of the iceberg. It's our way into a much bigger story. A story about perception, about the appearance of bias, and about what the judiciary's role is supposed to be in a healthy democracy. Okay, so let's start with the specific case that brought all of this to a boil. We're talking about Arvind Kejriwal directly confronting Justice Swarunkanta Sharma and actually asking her to step away from his case. So what was his argument exactly? Well, his lawyers laid it out pretty clearly. They pointed to the judge allegedly attending 4 events for the Adivakata Parishad, which they described as an ideological arm of the RSS and the BJP. Now, as their direct political rival, Kejriwal argued this created a reasonable apprehension of bias. He even brought up a Supreme Court quote to really drive the point home: perception matters. Now, this slide really shows you what Kejriwal claimed was fueling his concern. On the left, you've got the trial court. It held hearings every single day for over 3 months, went through 400 pages of evidence, and then discharged the accused. But on the right, the High Court. Kejriwal's camp alleged that in just one 5-minute hearing, and this is key, an ex-parte hearing, meaning without the defense even there, the High Court just paused that whole order. It's that huge difference in process that he said made him worry. But wait, it doesn't stop there. The story gets even more complicated because the allegations went beyond just ideology. Pretty soon, they spiraled into a classic question of potential conflicts of interest, and this time it involved the judge's own family. So just to be clear, what are we talking about when we say conflict of interest? The crucial thing here isn't about proving someone actually did something wrong. It's all about whether the situation looks like a public official's judgment could be compromised. It's all about that perception. And this is where a report by journalist Saurabh Das comes in. The source material we reviewed highlights his reporting, which alleged that both of Justice Sharma's children were appointed to legal panels for the union government. That means they were representing the government in cases, both in the Delhi High Court and even the Supreme Court. This, of course, just added a whole new layer to the questions being asked. Okay, so you might be thinking, is this just a one-off thing happening in Delhi? Well, according to the sources we're drawing from, not at all. They argue that this is part of a wider pattern, and they point to other judges in other high courts whose statements and actions have also raised some eyebrows. Let's head south to the Madras High Court, for example. Justice G.R. Swaminathan reportedly made these comments at an RSS-affiliated event, saying the Indian Constitution lacks originality. Now, that drew a lot of fire. Critics were asking, should a sitting judge be publicly questioning the very document they've sworn an oath to protect? And then up in Uttar Pradesh, a statement from Justice Shekhar Yadav of the Allahabad High Court also got a lot of attention. He reportedly said that law follows the majority. For critics, this sounded an awful lot like a suggestion that the law should just bend to whatever the majority wants, instead of standing firm on constitutional principles that are there to protect everyone. All right, so we've looked at the high courts. Now let's zoom out and go all the way to the top, to the Supreme Court. Here the focus shifts a little bit. It's not just about what judges do on the bench, but what happens after they retire. The source material points to some really high-profile government jobs for recently retired Supreme Court justices. You've got former Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, who was nominated to Parliament. Justice Abdul Nazir became a state governor not long after he retired. And Justice Ashok Bhushan got a top job at a major tribunal. The question these appointments raise is all about the separation of powers. And here is the connection that critics are quick to draw. The source highlights that several of the justices who got these big government jobs after retirement were on the exact same 5-judge bench that delivered the incredibly sensitive and politically significant verdict in the Ram Mandir case. This has fueled a lot of concern about a potential quid pro quo, favor for a favor. So after going through all these different incidents, from the high courts all the way up to the Supreme Court, the material we're looking at brings us back to one simple question. Why should any of this matter to the average person? And this really is the heart of it all. For most people, the courts are supposed to be the last resort, the one place where it doesn't matter how powerful or connected you are, only the law and the facts should matter. It is, like the saying goes, the last hope for justice. At the end of the day, the core issue being raised here isn't necessarily about proving bias beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's about how things look. Because if the public starts to lose faith, if people believe the judiciary isn't impartial, that it's swayed by politics or personal ties, then one of the most important pillars of democracy starts to crumble. And that's the big question this whole thing leaves us with. When the very idea of justice is on trial, the entirety of the whole system is hanging in the balance. It's a huge question about that razor-thin line that judges have to walk every single day between their own personal lives and beliefs and their sworn public duty to be impartial.